Well, there's a reason we're talking about it, because the government would rather give the appearance of doing something about small boats than actually solve what are endemic problems in our immigration system around the processing of claims, around the deportation of people whose claims are unsuccessful, and crucially, the criminal gangs. It's no use government ministers coming on your programme and saying, aren't these criminal gangs absolutely terrible, exploiting people, and then voting against measures in Parliament, as proposed by Labour, as we did this week, voting against those measures that would take money, put it to better use in the National Crime Agency to smash the criminal gangs, many of whom are operating within our own country and dreadfully exploiting people, speeding up claims, deporting people where those claims are unsuccessful, smashing the criminal gangs. That's the way to tackle the problem that we have with our immigration system. The government aren't doing any of that, and we're spending millions of pounds every day housing people in hotels as the price of Conservative failure for 13 years.
They are doing something about it, of course. But in the meantime, are barges a good idea?
Minimum standards have to be met in terms of housing people.
So it's not a bad idea?
Well, I think the crucial thing here is it won't be instead of hotel accommodation. I think this is what the government's trying to spin is, look, we've got this problem with housing people in hotels. It can be expensive. We'll put them on barges instead. Or we put them in barracks instead. But we have the absurd spectacle of Conservative MPs campaigning against putting people in barracks in their constituencies, just as they did in hotels in their constituencies. No doubt it'll be the same with barges off the coast of their constituencies. The fundamental problem we've got to deal with here is that it takes far too long to process claims, far too long to deport people.
You said that, Mr Streeting, but my question is it a good idea in the meantime?
I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I don't think it's going to see people on barges instead of hotels. I don't think it's going to bring the hotel bills down. It's going to add to the cost of a broken immigration system.
It is, because they're going to move them out of hotels and put them into...
I believe it when I see it, Kate. I'll tell you what's going to happen. We've got hotels that are overflowing with people. There will be barges overflowing with people. And unless and until you speed up the processing and deal with claims that are successful and unsuccessful in the right way, and deal with the problem at source, which is criminal gangs exploiting people, we're going to be back here again and again and again. I thought it was a bold claim of the Prime Minister to say, stop the boats. I believe it when I see it. It's not as headline-grabbing as barges, the measures that are going through Parliament this week, which are remarkably similar to the measures that were put forward by Priti Patel, remarkably similar to the measures that were put forward over the course of the last 13 years. You've got to deal with the fundamental problem, which is the processing isn't working. The decisions, once they're made, are not being implemented in terms of deporting people whose claims are unsuccessful. And we have got this problem of organised criminal gangs operating in this country who aren't being dealt with.
£6 million, £7 million a day.
It's outrageous. I've got much better uses for that money.
Is it an appropriate way of using the Overseas Development Fund?
I don't think it is. Look, and also £7 million a day. I'd quite like that for the NHS, actually, to bring down waiting lists. I'd quite like that for kids in schools who are being, I think, severely disadvantaged by the long-term impacts of the pandemic and all of that lost education, the impact on life chances. I'd like £7 million a day to be used to tackle child poverty, which is rising in this country. I've got 7 million different uses for £7 million, which does not involve housing people in hotels, because the government have broken our immigration system. It wasn't like this 13 years ago, and it's worse now.
Do you agree with Sir Keir Starmer's decision to block Jeremy Corbyn as a potential Labour MP?
I do. And look, I think Keir Starmer, when he said he was serious about learning the lessons from defeat of the last election, when he said he was serious about ripping anti-Semitism out by its roots in the party, when he said he was going to make the Labour Party a credible alternative government, not just a protest party, he meant it. And I'm afraid Jeremy Corbyn's got no one to blame for this outcome but himself.
OK, but when Sir Keir Starmer spent several years in Corbyn's shadow cabinet saying that he was going to be the best leader of this country, why should we trust him now, when he said that then?
Well, I think you can judge Keir by his actions. When he became leader of the Labour Party, he said that tackling anti-Semitism within our party would be his absolute priority. He would get to work on it. I think he's gone further and faster than I would have expected.
And I think he's to service him as under Prime Minister, and now he's saying he can't be even an MP. Well,
there were lots of people in the shadow cabinet under Jeremy Corbyn who I had zero confidence in when it came to tackling anti-Semitism, who denied there was a problem.
you wouldn't
Keir
serve in
Starmer
his
was
cabinet.
never one of them. And whenever Keir Starmer was one of a very small number of people in the shadow cabinet under Jeremy Corbyn that I could approach about anti-Semitism, who I thought took it seriously and did what he could at the time. He's now the leader of the Labour Party, and there's no doubt that Keir Starmer has changed the Labour Party, shown real leadership when it comes to
I'm going to come in here, Shadow
anti-Semitism.
Secretary of State, come on. He was very happy to serve under this man to be not only the leader of the Labour Party, but also the next Prime Minister he wanted to be. Now he isn't. He's flip-flopped again.
I don't think you can accuse Keir Starmer of flip-flopping on Jeremy Corbyn and anti-Semitism. I think he has shown real leadership. This is unprecedented in modern British politics, but so was a major political party being found guilty of breaking the law when it came to tackling racism within our ranks. Keir Starmer took it so incredibly seriously that when Jeremy Corbyn failed to apologise, failed to take responsibility, he lost the whip.
He wanted
and now
him to
he
be
has
Prime
lost
Minister.
the chance to be a Labour candidate at the next general election. That's real leadership.
He wanted him to be Prime Minister.
But I think Keir Starmer has shown real leadership when it comes to tackling
anti-Semitism. He's changed his mind, he's flip-flopped again.
And there's a sharp contrast between Keir Starmer and Jeremy Corbyn. That's why people look at Keir Starmer and see not just a leader of the opposition, but an alternative Prime Minister for our country, someone who can deliver real change. He's changed the Labour Party. He's now in a great position to be able to change the country. That's what the Labour Party is about. We're not a protest party. We want to effect real change. And compare 13 years of Labour government and what we achieved to 13 years of Conservative government, and change can't come sooner.
So he was wrong to support him as Prime Minister?
Well, I think the Labour Party got itself into a terrible mess under Jeremy Corbyn. Worst defeat since 1935. And had Keir Starmer been the leader of the Labour Party in 2017 or 2019, we wouldn't have gone down to terrible defeats.
Was he wrong to support Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister?
Well, look, Keir Starmer, I think, like the rest of the Labour Party, tried to make the best of a bad situation.
So he was wrong, or he was right to support him as Prime Minister?
When Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party and we could see that things were not going the way that they should, people made different choices to try and bring about, I think, the best possible outcome.
He was happy to serve in his shadow cabinet.
I'm glad Keir Starmer was in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, because, as you know, when he was in that shadow cabinet, he was one of the few people that I could go to on anti-Semitism and knew that they would take it seriously. He tried to influence from within. I made a different choice, but I don't think, thinking about the different choices that were made under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, I don't think that my choice was any more virtuous than Keir Starmer's, actually. We tried to make the best of a bad situation. Thankfully, those days are gone. The Labour Party has changed under Keir Starmer's leadership. He is a credible alternative Prime Minister for this country. He would effect real change, whether it's rescuing the NHS from its worst crisis in history, tackling child poverty and deep inequality in our country, make Britain stand tall on the world stage again. And that's thanks to Keir's leadership.
We're out of time. You'll have to get off that soapbox, and we'll joust again soon.